Midnight in Rome's darkest alleys. The air hung heavy with the scent of ancient stone, stale wine, and secrets. A masked figure, cloaked in shadows, clinging to her like a second skin, slipped through the labyrinthine passages. Her movements were silent, practiced, like a ghost weaving through the sleeping city. She wasn't seeking solace or simple pleasure. No, this clandestine journey had a far more audacious, dangerous purpose. She was preparing for a conquest. She was entering a brothel, but not as a victim, not as a woman forced into a life of shadows, seeking coins for survival. This was no common girl, no nameless face swallowed by the city's grim underbelly. This was an empress, the Empress of Rome herself, a woman who had willingly chosen this path of dark defiance. Her name was Messalina, and her actions would shock the very foundations of the Roman Empire. She challenged hardened street women in contests of raw endurance, pushing human depravity to its limits. Her shocking, scandalous secret would soon ripple through every level of society, shaking an empire built on order and virtue. It was a path that, ultimately, would lead her to a brutal, tragic end. Her story, a chilling saga of ambition and excess, stands as a stark reminder of how raw desire and absolute power can intertwine, weaving a deadly tapestry with devastating consequences. Before we dive deeper into these forgotten stories of survival and suffering, help me reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Your support fuels this channel, helping us expose history's darkest and most fascinating secrets, bringing these incredible figures back into the light. Hit that subscribe button right now, join our growing community of history enthusiasts, and like this video to show your support. Your engagement, your clicks, your comments, they truly make a profound difference, allowing us to continue this journey of discovery. The year was 38 CE, a time when Rome stood at the zenith of its power, a sprawling metropolis dominating the known world. Yet, beneath its magnificent marble facades and awe-inspiring imperial grandeur, the city teemed with pervasive corruption. It was an age of vast wealth for some, poverty for many, and a constant cutthroat struggle for influence. On the opulent imperial throne sat Emperor Claudius, a man often underestimated by those around him, dismissed by the sneering Roman elite as little more than a bumbling academic. Claudius possessed a sharp mind, a keen intellect that devoured knowledge and reveled in scholarly pursuits. He was a dedicated historian, an astute administrator, and a capable leader when given the chance. However, his physical challenges, a noticeable limp, a pronounced stammer, and a nervous tremor, made him appear awkward, fragile, and less imposing in a society that fetishized physical perfection and martial prowess. These visible imperfections were often misinterpreted as signs of weakness, casting a shadow over his genuine abilities and leading many to believe he was easily manipulated. Claudius had risen to power under unexpected circumstances, propelled onto the throne after the assassination of his nephew, Emperor Caligula. He was a scholar by inclination, more comfortable buried in ancient scrolls than commanding legions. This scholarly disposition, combined with his physical infirmities and unexpected ascension, made his position as emperor precarious. He desperately needed to project an image of stability and strength, both to the Roman people and the ever-scheming senatorial class. To solidify his reign and ensure the continuity of his dynasty, he needed a wife who could not only bring him public prestige and connection to the powerful Roman aristocracy, but most importantly, provide legitimate heirs. These children would be the future of Rome, anchoring his family's grip on power. It was into this complex, often brutal world that a young woman named Valyria Messalina stepped, destined to become his third wife. Her beauty and youth were undeniable, striking, and immediately captured attention. She was everything Rome, at first glance, expected in an empress. Messalina hailed from an ancient noble family, directly connecting her to the very roots of Roman power and tradition. Her lineage alone brought immense social capital and respect, an invaluable asset to an emperor who still struggled to win over the old guard. Publicly, she presented herself as the very picture of virtue, carrying herself with an innate grace and regal dignity. She played the role of the devoted wife and future mother of emperors perfectly, presenting to the Roman world an image of imperial stability, domestic bliss, and promising fecundity. She walked through the forum and the palace with an air of demure respectability, her elaborate hairstyles and elegant stolas conveying an outward serenity that seemed beyond reproach. Yet, beneath this seemingly flawless and carefully constructed exterior, a hidden, insatiable hunger stirred within her. This desire was not for simple status or political wealth, though she possessed both in abundance. No, this craving was for something far darker, more transgressive, and infinitely more dangerous. It was a hunger for experiences that defied all conventions, a craving for a life lived beyond the stifling confines of imperial expectation. Barely 15 years old when she married the much older Claudius, Messalina appeared to be the embodiment of Roman aristocratic beauty, a vision of youthful perfection. Her skin was famously like polished marble, smooth and pale, catching the light with an ethereal glow. Her hair shone like spun gold, often styled in intricate braids that framed a face of exquisite, delicate features. She seemed, to all observers, destined for a life of quiet grandeur, refined elegance, and dignified duties within the imperial palace, surrounded by unimaginable luxury and protected from the world's harsh realities. She carried herself with an air of innocence that charmed many, disarming even cynical members of the Roman court. Her youthful demeanor and seemingly gentle nature made her seem harmless, easy to underestimate. But this youthful perfection, this delicate facade, masked a truly ferocious will and an unyielding thirst for experiences that went far beyond the gilded cages of royalty and the strictures of her public life. The rigid protocols of the court, the endless stream of formal ceremonies, the suffocating politeness, all of it chafed against her spirit. Her noble birth, her ancient lineage, had instilled in her an unshakable confidence, a profound belief that she was not only superior to ordinary citizens, but also fundamentally above normal rules, laws, and moral constraints. She felt entitled to carve her own path, regardless of the consequences. Claudius, who was 13 years older than Messalina, a man approaching his 50s, often seemed overshadowed by her vibrant youth and dazzling beauty. His physical difficulties, though they did not hinder his sharp intellect, sometimes made him appear weak and less commanding in a society that highly valued strength, physical prowess, and military bearing. The Roman people admired victorious generals, charismatic leaders, and men of athletic build. Claudius, with his limp and stammer, struggled to fit this mold. Consequently, he relied heavily on Messalina's captivating public image to bolster his own, to project an aura of vitality and charm that he felt he lacked. She brought him not only immense prestige, through her ancient lineage and impeccable social connections, but also the crucial promise of legitimate heirs, a vital and pressing concern for any Roman emperor seeking to establish a lasting dynasty. For Claudius, Messalina represented a chance at unparalleled stability, a radiant symbol of a prosperous and secure future for his reign and his family name. He genuinely believed she was his devoted and virtuous empress, completely unaware of the raging storm brewing beneath her calm, beautiful surface, a storm that would soon engulf them both. He saw only the perfect wife, the ideal mother, the unwavering pillar of imperial virtue, a heartbreaking delusion that would eventually destroy him. Slowly, whispers began to circulate through the opulent halls of the palace. Hushed at first, barely audible, like the rustle of silk, they grew bolder, more insistent, fueled by incredulity and morbid fascination. Messalina, the paragon of imperial perfection, meant to embody all Roman virtues, was reportedly sneaking out of the palace at night. Her silken gowns, embroidered with precious threads and adorned with imperial jewels, were being traded for coarse, dark cloaks of common wool, simple hoods pulled low, disguising her noble status, hiding her regal features from prying eyes. These clandestine departures were far more than mere youthful escapades, more than a rebellious teenager seeking a thrill. They hinted at a desperate, almost primal need for a different kind of life, a profound rebellion against the strictures and suffocating expectations of her public role. The imperial palace, with its rigid etiquette, endless ceremonies, suffocating luxury, and constant unforgiving scrutiny, was not a sanctuary but a gilded prison to her. Its golden bars, though beautiful, trapped her spirit, and she sought a desperate, exhilarating freedom in the anonymity and moral chaos of the shadows. She craved a world where her title meant nothing, where she could shed the burden of being an empress. Her chosen destinations were not the elegant, lamplit streets where senators held court, or the exclusive villas where the elite feasted and gossiped. No, her path led her instead into the sprawling, dangerous, and notorious pleasure district known as the Subura. This was Rome's raw, beating underbelly, a sprawling maze of narrow, filthy alleys, rickety tenements, and bustling taverns, where prostitutes, criminals, gladiators, and the destitute lived side by side, their lives interwoven in a harsh tapestry of survival. The contrast with her opulent palace life could not have been starker, more jarring, or more deliberately provocative. The air in the Subura was thick with the cloying stench of cheap wine spilled on dirty cobblestones, the acrid odor of stale sweat, the pungent smell of human waste, and the smoky aroma of cooking fires. It was a cacophony of shouting vendors, raucous laughter, drunken brawls, and whispered solicitations, a world utterly removed from the delicate perfumes, burning incense, and hushed reverence of the imperial chambers. Yet Messalina was drawn to it, almost magnetically, to its raw, untamed, visceral energy. She sought out places where she could be completely anonymous, where her exalted title meant absolutely nothing, where social standing evaporated, and where primal instinct, unchecked desire, and raw survival ruled supreme. She found a strange, compelling liberation there. She didn't just walk through the Subura as a casual observer, a tourist gawking at the unusual. She watched, intensely, with an almost scientific curiosity and a chilling detachment. Her eyes, usually veiled by imperial dignity, were now sharp, assessing, absorbing every detail. She learned the unspoken rules of this brutal world, the subtle signals exchanged between its inhabitants, the harsh and unforgiving realities faced by Rome's prostitutes. She studied their movements, the practiced flick of their hips, the inviting tilt of their heads, their flirtations, both subtle and brazen, and, perhaps most importantly, their incredible resilience in the face of constant hardship, degradation, and violence. It was as if she were meticulously preparing for something, gathering knowledge, not for a play or a masquerade, but for a deadly serious role she intended to play herself. This wasn't idle curiosity or a momentary thrill. It was a focused, almost clinical study of a world utterly alien to her noble birth, yet one she felt utterly compelled to master. She was observing, learning, and ultimately forging a new kind of power, a power born of transgression, anonymity, and the manipulation of primal urges. She was finding a way to assert herself, not through titles, but through an entirely different form of control. The perfect opportunity for her to truly unleash her darker impulses arrived during Saturnalia, Rome's wildest and most celebrated festival. During this extraordinary week-long celebration, the entire social order was deliberately turned upside down. Masters served their slaves, social taboos were temporarily suspended, and masks concealed identities, allowing for unprecedented freedom and anonymity. It was a period of sanctioned excess, wild abandon, and unrestrained revelry, a perfect, chaotic cover for Messalina's burgeoning and darkest desires. The very fabric of Roman society loosened, making her unthinkable acts almost blend into the madness. Disguised meticulously with a dark, coarse wig that obscured her famous golden hair, and adopting the common, unassuming name of Lysiska, a typical moniker for prostitutes of the era, she slipped into one of the city's busiest and most notorious brothels. She presented herself to the madam, not as a client seeking pleasure, but as a new recruit offering her services. What made her offering truly astonishing was that she wasn't seeking money. She offered her services completely for free. Her breathtaking beauty, even under the crude disguise of a common wig and simple cloak, must have been astonishing, a shocking contrast to the grimy, smoke-filled surroundings and the hardened faces of the other working women. The madam, undoubtedly intrigued by such an unusual and stunning new girl, would have wasted no time in putting her to work. Once inside the brothel, Messalina didn't just perform her assigned duties. She dominated. With a fierce, almost demonic energy, she took man after man, hour after hour, pushing herself to the absolute limits of physical and emotional endurance. She outlasted every other woman in the brothel, her stamina legendary, her resolve seemingly unbreakable. She performed not with shame or regret, not with the resigned weariness of a woman forced into such a life, but with a fierce, almost triumphant determination. There was a challenge in her eyes, a hunger for victory. Each encounter was, for her, a strange kind of victory, a personal testament to her unyielding will, and a defiant, visceral rejection of the delicate, virtuous image she was outwardly forced to maintain as Empress. She left the brothel not feeling degraded or violated, but invigorated, a strange, dark sense of accomplishment swelling within her. She had proven something profound, not to the men she had serviced, nor to the madam who watched her with astonished eyes, but entirely to herself. She had shown herself that she could transcend, that she could control, that she could dominate even in the most debased circumstances, and that was a power she craved above all else. Soon, these secret outings began to escalate rapidly, transforming from mere clandestine escapades into operations of almost military-level precision and planning. Messalina no longer relied on spontaneity. She employed a small, trusted network of loyal servants and co-conspirators. These carefully chosen individuals were tasked with implementing intricate disguises, fabricating false identities, and planning carefully mapped-out routes to ensure her absolute safety and, more crucially, her complete secrecy. Every detail of the tool was meticulously considered, every potential risk assessed, creating a cloak of invisibility around her dangerous double life. Her actions became progressively more daring, her thirst for extreme experiences growing with each successful escape and each defiant act. The thrill of being almost caught, the constant danger of discovery, only fueled her desire to push the boundaries further, to see just how far she could go without breaking. She was, in essence, addicted to the risk itself, to the adrenaline rush of defying taboos, to the intoxicating power of the secret life she had so meticulously forged. Each night was a gamble, and she loved the stakes. She began to raise the stakes even higher, no longer content with merely participating in the underworld's illicit activities. Messalina brazenly challenged Rome's most famous and celebrated courtesans, women renowned throughout the city for their beauty, their wit, and their legendary sexual stamina, to public competitions of sexual endurance. These weren't merely whispered rumors circulating through back alleys. They were highly orchestrated, highly anticipated events, witnessed by a select, depraved segment of the Roman elite, men and women who craved new and shocking spectacles to titillate their jaded senses. These contests were a truly twisted spectacle, a grotesque display of raw, unrestrained sensuality that managed to shock even a Roman society accustomed to hedonism and overt sexuality. Messalina craved not just the physical acts themselves, but the ultimate victory, the assertion of her own undeniable dominance over these professional women, even in this most illicit and degrading of arenas. It was, for her, a bizarre and profoundly disturbing form of competitive sport, a way to prove her unparalleled power and control, not just over her body, but over the very concept of societal norms. In one infamous contest, a scandalous event meticulously recorded by ancient historians such as Juvenal and Tacitus, Messalina challenged a renowned prostitute named Scylla. Scylla was a legend in her own right, famous for her beauty and her apparently boundless capacity for pleasure and endurance. The setting for this grotesque competition was discreet yet lavish, a private room within a secluded villa or an exclusive brothel filled with curious high-ranking spectators from Rome's most depraved circles. These were men and women who held immense power but sought the thrill of the forbidden, drawn by the irresistible scandal of an empress engaging in such a contest. The air would have been thick with the scent of expensive perfumes, spiced wine, and the unspoken tension of anticipation. The rules were brutally simple and explicitly stated. Who could endure the most clients in a single, uninterrupted night? Messalina, with her dark wig firmly in place and her assumed name, Lysiska, on her lips, utterly surpassed her rival. She reportedly took over 30 clients, enduring hour after grueling hour with an almost inhuman resolve and an unblinking determination that astonished even the most jaded witnesses. The Roman elite, a group notoriously cynical and difficult to impress, watched in stunned silence, their murmurs dying away, as their empress, disguised as a common harlot, not only participated, but triumphed, shattering all conceivable norms of decency, imperial dignity, and social decorum. It was a performance that solidified her legend, even as it utterly damned her soul. What time are you watching this? Morning, afternoon, or night? Comment below to let me know, and let's see how many night owls we have. Her goals now began to shift profoundly, moving beyond simple pleasure or even a twisted sense of personal freedom. What had started as a quest for illicit thrills and a defiant escape from her gilded cage slowly but inexorably evolved into a calculated, ruthless pursuit of tangible power. Messalina, with her keen, predatory intellect, began to realize that her unique and utterly scandalous position could be weaponized. Her increasingly outrageous activities, far from being mere indulgences, were becoming a potent means to control, to manipulate, and to ultimately dominate the very men who governed Rome. She saw the true leverage her secrets afforded her. To consolidate this newfound, perverse power, she established her own luxury brothel. This wasn't for financial profit. Messalina had access to the imperial treasury and limitless wealth. No, this establishment had a far more sinister purpose. This brothel was staffed not by willing prostitutes, women who chose the life for economic reasons, but by high-born noblewomen whom she had blackmailed into involuntary servitude. These women, trapped by their own indiscretions, perhaps a forbidden affair, a gambling debt, a hidden shame, became her unwilling pawns. Their reputations, their family's honor, and their very lives were ruined if they dared to refuse the Empress's demands. They were prisoners of their own secrets, enslaved by Messalina's cunning. This lavish, yet utterly depraved brothel became an intricate and inescapable trap for Rome's most powerful and influential men. Senators, revered military commanders, wealthy merchants, and other influential figures were expertly lured into its opulent, secretive chambers by promises of unparalleled discretion and forbidden pleasures. Unbeknownst to them, their most intimate secrets, their hidden preferences, their most humiliating acts, and their deepest vices were meticulously recorded. Messalina employed a network of loyal spies, often freedmen or trusted household staff, who documented every illicit encounter, every whispered confession, every compromising position. They listened, they observed, they wrote it all down in painstaking detail. These carefully collected dossiers of scandal, bursting with damning information, became her personal arsenal, her most potent weapon. With this invaluable intelligence at her fingertips, she possessed the power to expose, to blackmail, or to utterly ruin anyone who dared to stand in her way, anyone who challenged her authority, or anyone she simply disliked. The brothel was not merely a place of illicit pleasure, it was a powerful intelligence-gathering hub, a covert operation that secured her insidious grip on Rome's entire elite. She owned their secrets, and by owning their secrets, she owned them. Her manipulations grew even bolder, fueled by her escalating hunger for control and her increasing sense of invincibility. Messalina began to stage grand, public orgies, cleverly disguised as ancient religious festivals. These were elaborate affairs, presented with all the pomp and solemnity of traditional Roman rites, complete with evocative music, ornate costumes, and the pretense of spiritual devotion to obscure gods and goddesses. To the uninitiated, they appeared to be legitimate acts of piety, but beneath the thin veneer of religious reverence lay a deeper, far more sinister purpose. She used these expertly orchestrated events to ensnare senators and their families in compromising, often depraved acts they could never admit to in public, acts that would shatter their reputations and bring ruin upon their houses. The overwhelming shame of their participation, the paralyzing fear of exposure, and the moral degradation she so cruelly inflicted became a powerful leash she held firmly in her hand. Messalina reveled in this absolute power, knowing she could command Rome's most influential citizens, bending them to her will through the potent currency of their darkest, most unspeakable secrets. She was the mistress of their hidden lives, and that made her the true mistress of Rome. Would you survive in such a treacherous, manipulative world, where every secret was a weapon? Yes or no? Tell me in the comments, and be honest. Then, in the year 48 CE, Messalina committed the ultimate act of treason, a move so audacious, so utterly unthinkable, that it defied all imperial protocol and all standards of political common sense. While Claudius, her unsuspecting husband, was away from Rome, visiting the bustling port of Ostia on official duties, she didn't just have an affair or make a discreet political maneuver. Instead, she publicly married her young, ambitious lover, a knight of her Gaius Silius. This was not a secret liaison conducted in the shadows. It was an open declaration, a brazen challenge to the emperor himself, a direct usurpation of his authority, and a profound insult to the Roman state. It was an act of war disguised as a wedding. Her choice of Gaius Silius was a meticulously calculated one. He was not only exceptionally handsome and charming, possessing the kind of striking good looks that captivated Roman society, but he was also a fiercely ambitious young man from a prominent, well-connected family with significant political influence of his own. Messalina saw him not merely as a passionate lover, a temporary dalliance, but as a potential partner in a full-blown power grab, a co-conspirator in a grand scheme to seize the imperial throne. She firmly believed that with Silius by her side, she could truly rule Rome, becoming the undisputed power behind or even upon the throne. She relentlessly pushed him into this incredibly dangerous game, whispering promises of ultimate power and the imperial crown itself, feeding his own ambition and blinding him to the immense risks involved. The marriage ceremony itself was conducted as a full, traditional Roman wedding, performed with all the customary rituals, legal formalities, and public displays, as if it were a perfectly legitimate union. Messalina, the reigning empress, defiantly donned a bridal veil, a sacred symbol of a legitimate wife and a chaste bride, in direct violation of all conventions and moral laws. She made solemn sacrifices to the gods, invoking their blessings upon a union that was inherently treasonous, blasphemous in its audacity. She signed legal contracts, formalizing the union in the eyes of Roman law, or at least in her own deluded and dangerous conviction. Most brazenly of all, she openly called herself the new Empress, proclaiming her new status to all who witnessed the spectacular and scandalous event. In her mind, she had truly orchestrated a successful coup, a magnificent takeover of the empire. She believed she was victorious, and Rome was hers. When news of this unthinkable betrayal finally reached Claudius, it was delivered by Narcissus, a powerful and fiercely loyal freedman who served the emperor with unwavering devotion. Narcissus understood the immense danger he faced by carrying such devastating information, knowing Messalina's ruthless nature, but his loyalty to Claudius outweighed his fear. Claudius was reportedly stunned into a deep, disbelieving silence, unable to immediately comprehend the magnitude of such an act, such a profound violation of trust and power. The emperor sat motionless, his mind struggling to process the unimaginable treachery. Then, slowly, a quiet, terrifying fury began to build within him, a cold, unwavering rage rarely seen in the often meek, scholarly emperor. It was a fury born of humiliation, betrayal, and the profound shock of having his authority so openly defied. He rode back to Rome with an urgent, desperate speed. His personal guard and his loyal freedmen, including Narcissus, by his side, their faces grim, knowing the gravity of the situation. They found Messalina still celebrating her illicit marriage, completely immersed in her dangerous fantasy of power and impending triumph, oblivious to the terrifying reality hurtling towards her. For her, the game was finally, irrevocably, and tragically over. Messalina's execution was swift, brutal, and utterly devoid of the grand, theatrical spectacle she so often craved. It was a stark contrast to her elaborate schemes, her public displays of defiance, and her life lived in the flamboyant glow of scandal. She was found in the beautiful, sprawling gardens of Lucullus, a once opulent estate, having been abandoned by her ambitious lover Silius and all her former allies. In her final moments, she was accompanied only by her mother, Domitia Lepida, a woman whose own life had been marked by Roman intrigue and power struggles. Her mother urged her to die with dignity, to take her own life rather than face the humiliating and wrathful hand of imperial justice, to salvage some shred of honor. But Messalina, the woman who had been so audacious, so fearless in life, so ready to challenge all boundaries, seemed unable to take this final, definitive step. The iron will that had driven her through so many transgressions now failed her. She hesitated, weeping openly, perhaps clinging to a last, desperate and utterly futile hope of clemency, a reprieve that would never come. It was then, in that moment of weakness and despair, that a freedman, dispatched by the ever-loyal Narcissus, stepped forward and struck her down with a single, brutal thrust of a dagger. The Empress, who had once dominated Rome's darkest corners with her insatiable desires and ruthless ambition, met her end not in a public spectacle of imperial vengeance, but in a quiet, secluded garden, a swift, ignominious, and utterly unceremonious death. Her power dissolved with her last breath. Her punishment extended far beyond the mere cessation of her life. It was an attempt to erase her very existence from the fabric of Roman history. Claudius, in a move of profound and lasting severity, immediately ordered that her name be erased from all public records, from every official document and every public monument. Every statue of Messalina, whether it stood proudly in the Forum or graced a private villa, was toppled, shattered into countless fragments, its likeness destroyed. Inscriptions bearing her name, carved into monuments, arches, and public buildings throughout the empire, were painstakingly chiseled away, leaving gaping, rough scars in the stone where her name once stood. Her memory was condemned by law, an act known as damnatio memoriae, the ultimate Roman punishment. This was not just a legal decree, it was a psychological and cultural obliteration, meticulously designed to wipe a person's existence from the collective consciousness of Rome, to make it as if she had never been born, had never lived, had never existed at all. Her image, her name, her very identity were systematically destroyed, an attempt to cleanse the public record of her scandal and disgrace. The Empress, who had tried to conquer Rome with her body, using sensuality, scandal, and transgression as her most potent weapons, was ultimately defeated not by an external enemy, but by her own boundless, unchecked ambition. Her elaborate game of power, played with such ruthless cunning and disregard for convention, led not to triumph and lasting glory, but to utter annihilation, both of her life and her legacy. She had grasped for ultimate control, for supreme power through the most unconventional and daring means, only to lose absolutely everything: her life, her family, and her very memory. Her name, as decreed by the emperor, was officially wiped from history. Yet her story proved too scandalous, too shocking, too profoundly disturbing to be entirely forgotten. Despite the efforts of damnatio memoriae, the dark legend of Messalina continued to whisper through the annals of Rome, carried by rumor and preserved in the chilling accounts of later historians. It served as a stark, cautionary tale about the insatiable dangers of unchecked desire, the corrupting influence of absolute power, and the fatal consequences of challenging imperial authority with such audacious disregard. It's a legend that even 2 millennia later still fascinates and repels us today, echoing with timeless warnings. Messalina didn't just live a privileged life, she conquered. She conquered the rigid social norms of her time. She defied all expectations placed upon an imperial woman, and she challenged the very idea of imperial virtue, crafting her own twisted, dangerous path to power. Her story is a chilling and unforgettable reminder of how absolute power, when combined with unrestrained desire and a defiant spirit, can intertwine in a deadly dance, corrupting even the most privileged of lives and leading to an inevitable, tragic downfall. Her brazen defiance, her soaring ambition, and her ultimate brutal downfall offer a unique, uncomfortable glimpse into the darkest, most intriguing corners of ancient Rome. A world of hidden desires, political machinations, and shocking transgressions. If this incredible tale of an empress who dared to shatter all conventions, who embraced depravity to gain power, and who ultimately paid the highest price has shocked and intrigued you, help me reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers by hitting that subscribe button now. Don't miss out on more true historical mysteries. And tell me, in the comments, which other forgotten historical figures' dark secrets or scandalous stories we should uncover next. Your engagement, your comments, and your support help us bring these incredible, often unsettling, and always fascinating stories to light for a wider audience. Join our growing community as we continue to explore the hidden truths and untold histories of the past, one scandalous secret at a time.